So now I've gone through all the lead vocals and fixed all the plosives. So next up we're going to have a look at volume and panning in the stereo field. Now this is where we set obviously the basic levels of the mix and get everything in a kind of general ballpark. Now this is bounced out from my MIDI project, the production project where I kind of made all the sounds and recorded everything. And I've kind of basically mixed it as I've gone along really. So the levels are pretty much there, but I just wanted to talk to you about levels before we go any further. When we're creating a mix, we're trying to create as much separation as possible. And the separation we create is left and right, and we do that with panning, front to back, and we do that using volume, reverb, frequency content, and also the sound envelope, so how loud the transient is. That's going to allow us to either have things further forward or further back in the mix. So if we have a louder sound, it's going to appear to us that it's closer to us, like it would do in our environment. Imagine if someone's talking to you a meter away from you, and if someone's talking to you 10 meters away from you, the quieter person who's 10 meters away will appear to be coming from further away. Likewise, if I hit a snare right next to your head, the transient and the pop of that snare will be extremely loud. If I hit a snare 50 meters away from you, then it won't be so loud. The sound will have more of an RMS kind of level with less of a transient. So obviously having louder transients in a sound also make our ear perceive it as being closer to us. Frequency content. If something's up close to you, generally it's going to have more frequencies present, more high frequencies, more low frequencies. If it's further away, it loses frequencies as it gets further away. So we use all these different things to create the feeling that something's coming from further away. Because obviously when we're mixing, we're actually mixing sounds that are coming from the same place. They're coming from the same two speakers. And we're trying to trick the ear and the brain into having the perception that things are either close to us or further away from us. And that's what we can use volume for. So for example, this sound that I said I wanted to be in the background, this pad sound. If I bring this down in level, it kind of falls back to the distance. Whereas if it's louder, it feels like it's closer to us. So you can kind of think of your volume control as obviously a way of blending the instrument sound so they sound balanced together, but also kind of like the pan is left to right, but front to back. So the further something away, the lower you're going to have it in volume. So as you're mixing your track and doing your volumes, try and keep that in mind. So the other thing obviously is the pan. So the pan allows us to basically push things in the stereo field left and right. This is a fairly simple thing to get your head around. So for example, with our drums at the moment, we've got them all panned centrally, but I think some of the tracks I will have actually panned and bounced with the panning applied. So let's have a look. So you can see how this wood block is slightly panned to the right. The hats are slightly to the left. Got this shaker sound which is very low in level, so I'm going to boost that up. I look into likewise these toms. I look into your eyes. So things like the kick and the snare, generally we want to have these nice and central. This track I wanted to sound good kind of at home and on the radio, but I also wanted to be able to play it in a club. So I don't want to have things kind of crazily panned, and you want the kick and the snare to be really, really present and kind of coming out the same across both the speakers. So some of the panning I've obviously bounced on. Let's have a look at the piano sounds. So the upright piano is panned a bit to the right. But this Nexus piano is quite central, so let's pan that a little bit to the left so that it balances with the upright piano. I look into your eyes and you're frustrated with me. You look back into mine, but there's nothing for you to see. So let's go. Let's have a look at the lead sounds now.
Keep on fighting, pretend there's still hope, that together we'll grow. Or if you're brave enough to risk it all for love, then do it all for us. Is it that simple?
Or is it complicated, baby?
Is it that simple?
Or is it complicated, baby?
Tell me, is it simple?
Or is it
Or
complicated,
not?
Use a gain plugin to bring the level of this up as well.
baby?
This sound here.
Is it that simple?
Or is it complicated, baby?
So you can see that I could have done that with the volume control, but I was actually hitting the ceiling and it still wasn't loud enough. So that's kind of a surefire sign that the input level coming in is not loud enough.
Your own.
Now, something I want to say about pan and stereo image as well is that the more stereo image something has and the wider something is, actually the closer it feels to us. Okay, so I want you to imagine you're looking down a very long road, and on either side of that road there's two people having a conversation 5 meters in front of you. Your ear will easily be able to perceive that one person is talking to you from your left and one person is talking from your right. If you were to push those people back 20 meters, 50 meters, let's say, and they're having a conversation much, much louder so you can still hear them, your ear would not be able to perceive that the sound was coming from the left or the right so easily because they'd be coming from a lot further away. In the same way as your sight would work similarly. If you're looking down a road, if you look down to the horizon, that road is a lot more narrow than it is when you're looking 10 meters in front of you, and your ear works exactly the same way. So actually, if you want something to appear to be further away from you, generally you narrow the stereo image. If you want something to appear closer to you, you actually have a wider stereo image. Now, this track is kind of a song-based track. It's not a traditional club track by any stretch of the imagination, but that's kind of the background I come from, and I do work on those kind of tracks as well a lot of the time. So when it comes to electronic music and club music, you know, there are rules that can just be thrown out the window and you can literally do whatever you want. But it's good to know the rules and know when you're deliberately breaking them rather than just not be aware of them in the first place. So that's quite a good rule to work by. If you want something to be in the background, generally narrow the stereo image. And if you want something to be further towards you, widen the stereo image. Likewise with panning, actually panning things makes them feel like they're closer to us than if things aren't panned, because we can actually localize where things are coming from better if they're panned left or right. So that's another thing to be aware of, is panning something will actually make it appear to be closer to us. So going back to my string sound, the pad sound I should say here. So I said I wanted this to be distant. So let's apply Logic's Imager plugin and Direction Mixer and actually narrow the stereo image of this sound, which will hopefully make it feel like it's further away.
Always asking why did this happen to me? Is it too much to try to carry on and let it be?
Let me just turn it up a little bit so we can actually hear it a bit more.
Be, baby. So let's go. Keep on fighting, pretend there's still hope, that together we'll grow. Or if you're brave enough to risk it all for love, then do it all for us.
So you can see how that does really, really push it back into the kind of background of the track. Okay, so that's a really, really good thing to do, is try and decide what's going to be in the foreground and what's going to be in the background, in exactly the same way as a painter would paint to have things in the foreground and the background, and try and kind of use the tools that you have at your disposal to kind of trick the listener into feeling like things are coming from further away or close to you. And that's one of the ways we can do it. So at this stage of the process, I'm going to be going through and doing all the volumes especially if it's a track which has basically just been zeroed and not been kind of bounced out at correct volume. And also going through and panning everything, but also making sure that any sounds that I want to be narrow or any sounds I want to be particularly wide, I can do so at this point as well. So let's say, for example, this synth sound we have on the chorus. We get to the chorus section. So I want this to be quite upfront. It's quite an important sound. So I could actually try the opposite and try this direction mixer to push this out to the sides a little bit more.
Or is it complicated, baby?
Tell me, is it simple?
Or is it complicated, baby?
Is it that simple?
Or is it complicated, baby?
Tell me, is it simple
Or is it
or
complicated,
not?
baby?
Is it that simple?
Now what's also important is these two sounds are actually doing kind of similar things, this pad sound and the brass sound. They're both sustaining elements. So it's another way of separating them as well. So if this one is kind of very narrow and in the background in terms of its stereo width, and this one is the opposite, and we've kind of created a small pocket for them both to exist in. We're going to do that even more because this one's going to lose huge amounts of the high frequencies that you can hear playing further down the line. But that's another thing to not overlook, is actually changing the stereo image of different sounds. Okay, so going back to the pan, try and think of the pan as well as a way of separating similar sounds. So if we had a tambourine and a shaker, for example, that were playing pretty much the same part, we could pan one of them hard left and one of them hard right, and we'd allow them both to operate in their own little space, one in the left speaker, one in the right speaker. Or if you wanted them to feel like they were kind of being played at the same time on the same side of the stage or whatever, we can actually pan them to the same place. So don't just pan things willy-nilly. Try and have a kind of process and a formula for how you're panning. And actually, it's a good idea to try and work out beforehand what you're going to do with the pans. And this feeds into trying to create a little pocket of space for each sound in the mix. So next up, what I want to look at is actually kind of looking at some pre-processing automation for the sounds. So this is our verse lead vocal. Now, if I put on a Pro C2 compressor from FabFilter, we're going to be looking at this in more detail when we actually get into the compression for real. But you'll see that you're going to get varying amounts of gain reduction.
I look into your eyes and you're frustrated with me. You look back into mine, but there's nothing for you to see.
So the level of gain reduction we're getting just with some kind of basic compression, don't worry about the settings too much, is fluctuating quite a lot. Now, it's a good idea to try and feed all the processors a really nice consistent volume. You're going to get better results if you do it that way. If the compressor is sometimes compressing a couple of dB and then compressing 8 dB, then it's not consistent. That's not really what you want the compressor to do. So it's better to feed the compressor a nice consistent overall level so that it can work effectively. The way we can do that, just take this off, is to use a gain plugin at the top of the chain. And then listening to the vocal, we can actually ride this level using the gain plugin so that we have a consistent signal.
I look into your eyes and you're frustrated with me.
So we can do this by ear and also by looking at the waveform as well.
I look into your eyes and you're frustrated with me. I look into your eyes and you're frustrated with me. I look into your eyes and you're frustrated with me. I look into your eyes and you're frustrated with me. I look into your eyes and you're frustrated. You look back into mine, but there's nothing for you to see. You look back into mine, but there's nothing for you to see. You look back into mine, but there's nothing for you to see. You look back into mine, but there's nothing for you to see. So let's go.
So that's a great one there. You can see the difference in level there. You can hear it and you can see it. So if I'm using the marquee tool here, by the way. A great way of creating adjustments to automation like this.
So let's go. 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 Keep on fighting. So let's go. So let's go. So let's go. Keep on fighting. So let's go. Keep on fighting.
Another great example there.
Keep on fighting. Keep on fighting. Pretend. Keep on fighting. Keep on fighting. Pretend. Keep on fighting. Pretend. Keep on fighting. Pretend there's still hope. Keep on fighting. Pretend there's still hope. That keep on fighting. Pretend there's still. Keep on fighting. Pretend there's still hope. Keep on fighting. Pretend there's still hope. That together we'll grow. Or if you're brave enough to risk it, that together we'll grow. That together we'll grow. That together we'll grow. That together we'll grow. Or if you're brave enough to risk it all for love, then do it all for grow. Or if you're brave enough to risk it all for love, we'll grow. Or if you're brave enough to risk it all for love, together we'll grow. Or if you're brave enough to risk it all for love, together we'll grow. Or if you're brave enough to risk it all for love, together we'll grow. Or if you're brave enough to risk it all for love, together we'll for love, then do it all for us. Then do it all for us. Then do it all for us.
Let's have a little listen back to the whole thing. This can be quite fiddly to get right because sometimes if you're focusing on separate phrases, you actually kind of ruin the gain structure of the whole take.
I look into your eyes and you're frustrated with me. You look back into mine, but there's nothing for you to see. So let's go. Keep on fighting. Pretend there's still hope. That together we'll grow.
So I feel like this whole section's a little bit loud. So if I select all this automation
Let's go.
and bring down that whole section.
Keep on fighting. Pretend there's still hope. That together we'll grow. Or if you're brave enough to risk it all for love, then do it all for us. Together we'll grow. Or if you're brave enough to risk it all for love, then do it all for us. I look into your eyes and you're frustrated with me. You look back into mine, but there's nothing for you to see. So let's go. Keep on fighting. Pretend there's still hope. That together we'll grow. Or if you're brave enough to risk it all for love, then do it all for us.
Okay, so that sounds pretty good. So what I'm going to do is go through this whole mix down basically, and all the elements that I've recorded in, like the guitars, the vocals, I'm going to go through and automate the levels so they're quite consistent And believe me, the compressors further down the line will be happy as a result of that. And you'll get a more consistent and just a fatter overall result. Okay, so I'm going to go off and do that. And then in the next video, we're going to have a look at filtering and subtractive EQ using Pro Q2. Thanks a lot for watching.